Welcome to the podcast where we explore the world of audio storytelling with the people responsible for creating enchanting experiences. I'm Oscar, he, him pronouns, and I'm on a podcast to learn everything you wanted to know about audio drama and actual play games, but never dared to ask. And today I'm delighted to be joined by Chrifu. Chrifu, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Hi, I'm Chrifu Bernal. My pronouns are he, him. I'm a cis gay white guy based in Frankfurt, Germany. And yeah, I'm an actual player.
So, hopefully anyone who comes to this will know what an actual player is. But when you say actual play, I think there are so many different styles and techniques. It'd be interesting to me to kind of understand what is an actual play to you? What are the key profound things that make it different from other forms of storytelling?
Oof, that's a really good question. Um, I think so. First off, actual play uses a framework, a system to tell a story. The dice tell the story typically. I mean, many games have different mechanics.
For example, I don't use dice.
Okay.
However, that's a particular choice I've made of a particular style of storytelling. But like you say, majority of actual plays are using a dice and a rule system, aren't they?
For sure. I mean, we know that 99% of them are using a D20 based system, most
Yes,
likely
that.
Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah. No, totally.
Um, but I think so a lot of people think they can take their home game, their tabletop role playing game, and turn it into an actual play, which works. But me and the community that I'm involved in, we definitely tried to do more of a production. That
Yeah.
there is most of it is improv and spontaneous, but there is a framework, and
Yeah.
we know that in the hour or 3 hours or whatever the time limit is, a story, an episode has to be finished. Whereas
Yeah.
I think in a non actual play, a private home game, if you will, it can just kind of go and flow, and it doesn't
Meander.
necessarily need to have a start, middle, and end.
Yeah, totally. Get it. So, let's go back a little bit then. What got you interested in the idea of doing this kind of performance experience?
Um, I was living in Brooklyn before the pandemic, and Starfinder had just come out, and I got on
Hmm.
the train to go to the my local game store to pick it up, and I sat down next to a guy who was reading the Starfinder book on the train. It had been out for like a week,
Yeah.
and he handed me his card. He was running a Twitch actual play studio out of his living room in Crown Heights in Brooklyn, and I tuned in and was fascinated because I come from a theater background in high
Yeah.
school, and I've always been interested in performing. But seeing role playing games, which is a very passionate hobby of mine, and set up in this sort of way was kind of mind blowing. And so in 2019, I launched a Twitch channel called Manapot Studios
Yeah.
and streamed actual plays with video on Twitch ever since.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think this is another interesting aspect of differentiator. So, for example, we're recording, we are performing basically live, but we are recording and then packaging and releasing. But there's something definitely special about being able to do a live experience, I think.
It is a different experience for sure. I have I now have a podcast actual play project, and it's my first podcast project that's been going for a little over half a year now.
Yeah.
And it is very different not having the chat there to sort of like bounce off that sort of live energy that comes
Yeah.
knowing you have a live audience. But I will say that the podcast format is really nice because you can polish and
Yeah.
refine the product at the end.
Mm.
It takes hours of work every week to get the episode out, as I'm sure you're well aware.
Well, you say that I cheat. I do as little as possible in terms of format and production. That being said, I'm very lucky. My son happens to be a video film editor,
Uh,
and so he actually is my for my game industry work. He's my trailer maker.
okay, cool. That's very handy.
So they're very handy. But even then, we try to keep it relatively minimal. We have a standardized format. We
Hmm.
record and we try to release almost unedited where we can, because we're trying to find that balance between the spontaneity and the kind of capture. But it means any major gaffes or any technical issues that happen is not a problem. Someone drops out because the internet's dead, we deal with it,
Hmm.
fix it in post. Whereas you can't fix in post in the Twitch stream, can you?
No, no. And the communities that I'm involved with online here in Europe, I've noticed a distinct shift in the last
Mm,
year of moving towards pre-produced
yeah,
streams,
yeah,
which I personally won't do because video editing is not. Audio editing was hard enough. I don't need to add
yeah, yeah.
video editing to my wheelhouse. But I also kind of miss that live aspect where I see
Mm.
chat saying something and then I can bring that into the game somehow and react to what the viewers in chat are saying. And it creates a much more symbiotic give and take between the audience.
And I think there's something that, I mean, like I say, I'm only a strictly Amdram person. I would never be an actor. I'm not good enough as an actor. I'm a good performer. I host events, but I'm not a good actor. But there is something about having an audience that
Mm,
in there in the room, and when I'm hosting a conference and I'm talking about games questions, I can tell if I'm being too slow. I can tell if I'm getting to the point. I
yeah.
can tell if I'm keeping people's interest. But when you're doing that without that audience, you can't really. But I've not done that as much. Well, a little bit, but I found it's less obvious, that response and reaction, because I think there's more a delay
It feels
in a
like you're in a
streamed
vacuum
experience.
of sorts.
Yeah.
And it's not until, because we have quite a several week buffer between
Yeah.
sessions we record and episodes that get
Yeah.
released. And so you don't know how people are going to react to it,
Mm,
especially the first, I would say, 2 to 3 months. I could see the metrics, going up and down, how many downloads we got, but I had no idea if people were receiving it or reacting
yeah.
to it or if they liked it. And luckily, in the 6 months since, we've seen more people kind of come out the woodwork. Blue Sky, of course, is a tremendous space for the actual
Yeah.
play enthusiast and the actual
It's
player.
so nice to have a space where I don't feel terribly dirty from posting anymore.
Yes. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
And so, I mean, but again, going back to the Twitch though, so Twitch versus, so obviously no direct reaction. We're all delayed with the podcast format,
Right.
but even with Twitch compared to live performance, there does seem to be there. To me, there is a delay. It's not instant. It's still someone's got to decide to type. It's always slightly behind where
Yeah.
you were. Do you find that can be distracting?
For me personally, no,
Yeah. Okay.
because I have 3 monitors here,
Good.
and I'm good at multitasking in that
Yeah.
regard.
Someone is good.
But of course, there are people that
Yeah.
it's overwhelming, and
Yeah.
I would also say that my experience streaming, we would be lucky to have 20 viewers at once,
Yeah. Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is manageable.
Yeah.
If I'd have been on bigger channels that were, hitting 100 viewers and chat was going super fast, I don't know. I don't know if I would even be able to pay attention to it as much as I have in the past.
Yeah, no, I get it, and I think I get a good sense of it, given that a number of online panels I've hosted where I've had 100 or so people in the room. You can more or less keep track, but I do think it's interesting. So you've got in 2019. You've started making kind of Twitch stream based off the fact that you had that lucky find of a guy sat there with Starfinder.
Yeah.
And you've gone down the Pathfinder route for your current podcast as well. Has it always been that kind of genre that you've been playing with, or have you tried? Have you worked with multiple different games?
Um. uh, yes is the
Yeah,
answer. That I have worked with other types of games.
yeah,
Of course, I'm a big Paizo fanboy. Pathfinder
yeah,
Starfinder is definitely my favorite.
yeah,
But I have tried many different things as far as
yeah,
the streaming game goes. I had a weekly Pathfinder campaign, and then in addition, we had launched something called the Happy Hour during the pandemic,
yeah,
because no one could go anywhere, and so we would just be drinking on stream.
yeah,
But then I moved to Germany in 2021, And the community that I had in New York, sort of, I'm 6 hours ahead. It makes it
Mm,
much harder to connect.
absolutely.
And I really tried to find folks in Europe to play with.
Mm,
And so at that point, I launched the EU Happy Hour. And
yep.
basically, the Happy Hour premise is that every week or every session, you've got new people in there playing a new game
Yeah.
of various genres and settings and
Nice.
systems. And that's really, since then, I've found a large community here of actual players and expanded. And that's how everyone on the TumbleThrough podcast, we all met streaming APs.
Whilst you're here, don't forget to check out our actual play, The Anything Could Happen show, on YouTube and all good podcast sites, where I put my guest players through no-win scenarios with limited information and always against the clock. And of course, where anything could happen.
All right, thank you so much for your transparency, William. Ala, would you like to tell me a little bit more about your
Yes.
perspective?
Actually, first of all, hello. My group, Calvex, we're very much about kind of getting rid of this capitalism thing, kind of more about working for the group, keeping things clean and tidy and respectful, of course, sharing out what we have amongst the people in our group, all those people we'll be working with, and trying to be as fair and clear and transparent as possible. Our actual interest here is actually, if it is possible, you mentioned you were both interested in the north. That works out perfect for us. We're actually interested in the southern hemisphere itself. It has incredibly good plains there. We have different forms of technology we can put in place so that we can begin to terraform a little bit and turn it slightly more towards something that works for us. But yes, we're hoping to settle some sort of colony there and really push a different way of living.
And again, this is my experience to date. We connected through a site called Euphoria, which is one of a bunch of actual play group sites. And what I found really fascinating is just how friendly the actual play, and the same thing I would say applies to the audio drama folks.
Mhm.
A friend of mine who's one of my players, Kareem, is an amazing kind of connector. He seems to know everybody in the UK that does audio drama, full stop. In fact, the fact that my podcast now part of Fable and Folly is largely down to him connecting me to somebody who connected me to somebody.
Yeah.
And everybody wants. The only experience I've had is it's basically like the games industry, which unlike most industries, the game industry is very collaborative. A lot of particularly indie developers are incredibly helpful to each other, incredibly supportive. And I found that it's almost like even more so with audio drama. I mean, am I just being lucky, or is that pretty typical?
I think it's pretty typical. Um, I will say the UK is its own space. Because in Europe, many people don't speak English. Each
Yeah,
country has their own sort of actual play scene.
of course.
And so when I first started, it was rough connecting with folks that weren't in the
Yeah.
UK, finding each other. And I think Euphoria has done a really good job of bridging the UK with the rest of the continent.
It does seem to have done, yeah. I mean, I'm hopefully going to be interviewing a friend of mine, Thomas, who's another games industry guy, who I just found out is a French-speaking actual player. So I'm going to bring him on. He's also one of these people who's worked with Kickstarter incredibly closely as well. So I suspect we'll bring some of those kind of Kickstarter funding questions up as we go through it.
It's interesting that you compare it with the game development community and the industry there, because many actual players are also TTRPG developers and writers.
Yeah,
So I'm
exactly.
sure that is where a lot of that influence has come from.
But also, a lot of the TTRPG and board game people have a history with video games.
Yeah.
So Chris Birch of Modifius, lovely chap who happens to have a past running a thing called Joystick Junkies, which was a mixer event in the UK, particularly, but not just, where they got video arcade machines in a kind of nightclub-like setting. Amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, and he has a fantastic range of T-shirts related to games. And he's just one of many. I mean, there's so many people I know who who've sat on both sides of the fence. Even James Portnow from Extra Credits is now doing board game stuff. So I think there's something the connective tissue here with the playfulness, particularly when we're talking more here about actor play rather than sort of just play, not plain, get me, uh, rather than linear storytelling, for want of a better phrase. There's something about the kind of play nature, the framed, rule-structured kind of playing experiences, which I think does have a deep connection with the same drivers for people who want to make video games, is my opinion. So back to this audio drama thing. So you talked earlier on about the recognition that you've got to create a story, that your audience is going to be listening for a period of time, and you need some satisfying circuit, for want of a better phrase, arc, whatever, that allows them to feel a payoff for that listening process. Are you basing that on, I mean, as the referee, as a player, are you basing that on the back of knowing the time that the session is going to last first, or do you finish the session when you've got to a natural point?
No, we definitely have a deadline when we sit down. We record a little behind the scenes. We record once a week for about 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
We record 2 episodes. And so we know, excuse me, we know that at the end of the first hour, we need to find a spot to wrap up.
Yeah.
So that we can, and because all of us come from this streaming background where you're not going hours and hours, you're doing 3 hours max, and everyone wants to log off at midnight because it's late and it's a weeknight. And so we all have much experience in hitting those deadlines. And I will say, as the game master, it's really easy for me to find that sort of sweet spot because of the happy hours that I ran. You have a one shot that needs to be done in 3 hours, and GMs who have run one shots know that is very difficult to do. And when I first started streaming those, it was quite difficult until I learned just pull out as much content as possible, leave a simple sort of the puzzle framework, the edges, and then let the players fill in the rest, because they're going to
they
want
will.
to do that. Yeah. And if you go trying to inject a whole bunch of extra stuff on that, then 2/3 of that session is you sort of dictating things at them, and that's no fun.
This is why I ended up with the 20-minute dilemmas, because to be able to have an experience that you could take around convention experiences, you needed something that was really finite, and by putting a real-time deadline against it, it created its own natural arc. It's almost like the players can't help themselves, because the time pressure itself delivers that kind of payoff. Maybe it's because I'm a lazy GM, for want of a better phrase. But to that point, I think that it's the way that your player base has that capacity to understand, that they're not just playing for their own sake; they're trying to give a show.
Yes.
Is that the right way to look at it?
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone is in the cast is absolutely trying to create something, whether it's a character or character arcs, and plug into the story. We are all experienced role players and know that your character needs to have a reason to go along with the story. And yeah, I think it's much more exciting when you can think about how your character would react to things. And maybe when you get the opportunity to plan a sort of arc. We just finished. We're about to wrap up our first season, depending on when this
at the time of
comes
recording.
At the time of recording, we've already recorded the end of our first season, and we've also recorded in the story. We're going to have an 8-month time skip. And so we recorded 8 vignettes in between where the characters interact with each other in different ways. And one player in particular, I was so impressed and surprised how she came in with her character. And each time, she was in 4 of the 8 vignettes. And each time she came in, you could see that there were character arcs that she had planned. and that you could see the character developing across these 8 months just in these small vignettes. And I think
Wow.
that's something that only comes when you have intention behind
Yes.
your role playing.
I think that's really powerful. We should get into a bit more description of this particular game, but I just want to hold off a little bit because I think there's more in that, more juice I want to get out of that particular piece, and I think it's to do with the difference, because if you talk about it from the point of view of an actor playing a part where you've got a devised story, there is this same kind of principle of character arc, but what I think that lacks is the uncertainty that rules complete. And that, I think, again, this is my take on it. My feeling is that the purpose of the rules is as much to make the action choices that we take to be meaningful, that we therefore own. And I think that changes the way that we tell the story. Is that
Yes,
sense?
100%.
Yeah.
The times we've had a failed role react and create a moment where a player character has this sort of, I don't know, devastating moment, or this abject failure, and then they can role play that and sort of explain, show how their character a little bit more inside, because you can't. No one's going to sit there and listen to an hour of one player character explaining their character's backstory and
No.
blah 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 blah. It's all about showing, not telling. And those roles, of course, everyone wants to succeed all the time and be super cool. But I think, and a lot of experienced GMs would tell you this, that it's the failed roles that really drive the story and the character
Absolutely.
development.
I'm going to be the boring D&D player type person. It's actually a Warhammer fantasy role-playing game I played back in the late 80s. This is how long ago this happened. I still remember to this day the magic moment where my character is up against a demon of Khorne. So basically the big bad general of the enemy army, and I fumble. My sword breaks and I'm left with a broken shard. I then have to wait as it attacks me through all of its 10 attacks, because in that game that's what happens, and then I get my one shot,
And it's
I
Khorne,
hit.
so they're out for
Khorne.
blood. Yeah,
Exactly, yeah. And I managed to hit. And in Warhammer, if you hit and you roll a 6 on the damage dice, you get to roll again. And I hit, and I rolled the damage dice and I got another 6. I rolled, I think it was 5 or 6 sixes in a row, killing the demon Khorne in one moment, having broken the sword with the fumble. And I talk about that, I wish that had been recorded. But if you have those moments, and they cannot be planned.
No.
But those moments when they occur, I think are so magical. And we literally have people round the room looking at this moment and all of the dice rolls. And I think that's when I first realized there's something about this as a form of entertainment. But I never got around to doing it till now, which is still it still worries me. Anyway, so that's the thing. That's the bit of juice I was after. So the fact of the dice in an actual play performing a function that is narrative, I think actually provides weight to narrative.
Yes, I mean, we don't have a script, so we need some sort of way to be able to create challenges and put hurdles in front of the characters.
Exactly. Okay, so let's go and dive in. Let's talk about TumbleThrough, in particular, Pathfinder. Tell us a little bit about where that came from. What was the genesis of that story, and how did you bring your crew together for that?
Well, so I've been wanting to do a Pathfinder podcast since I started streaming for years, and I think I bounced off of the audio editing process like 2 different times. With previous projects, just because I didn't have the right software, or I wasn't in the right headspace, or I didn't have enough time. And so luckily, this podcast has been able to stick. And I have a great cast. As mentioned, we have all met each other through streaming. And deciding what kind of story we wanted to tell was pretty simple, because I was able to go through all of the adventure paths that Paizo has published for Pathfinder. I also have a friend online, Jason of What Do You Do Pods,
Mhm.
who keeps a Excel spreadsheet of all of the Pathfinder, Starfinder podcasts and shows out there.
Nice.
So I was able to go through there and see what adventure paths modules had not been done yet. And I even straight up asked him, because we've known each other for a couple of years, what is the one that is done the least? And he came back with like 10 different options and said, but knowing you and the groups you play with, I think this one, Council of Thieves, would be best.
Right.
And I narrowed it down and went with Council of Thieves. It's actually the first adventure path that was published under the official Pathfinder 1E rules.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's very classic. There's a lot of sometimes problematic things because of the time,
Yeah.
which we have definitely taken steps to correct.
Yeah.
And yeah, the story just comes from there. Luckily, I don't have to homebrew anything except for all of the things that the players have brought in,
Yeah.
and making sure that our world is that ours and not
Yes.
mine that they're stepping into.
You're literally stepping into the area I was thinking of taking this next question, which is basically, as an improviser, I don't prepare. I don't do it when I'm doing kind of classic role play stuff. When I'm doing the anything that happen, I have to, because you're going to give people briefs. But my instinct is I'm going to improvise everything, and because of I've been doing it since I was 12. I have kind of a understanding, although I had 10 years of not doing it. So it was amazing how when the pandemic started, I started doing it again. It took me quite a while to get back into that instinct of it. But you're doing a written scenario.
Right.
There are constraints in those written scenarios.
And it's in a setting that is 20 plus years old at this point, I think. So my core audience that I'm trying to hit is, of course, the Paizo fan.
Yeah.
And I
So
want
they
to
probably know it.
Yeah, and I want to make sure that whatever we inject is reasonable, is logical, is immersive. It doesn't break any immersion.
Faithful to a certain extent, I'm assuming.
To a certain extent, we've definitely changed a lot. We've moved sort of the canonical timeline around. We've sort of updated the setting for second edition Pathfinder.
Yeah.
So big example, in second edition, orcs and leshies, so little plant people, and goblins are now core ancestries rather than your typical dwarf, in addition to your typical dwarf, elf, and halfling gnome. And so we wanted to figure out, okay, well, we have this city that's mostly humans, and of course have all of these other fantasy ancestries. How do we update this and include the fact that there are these new peoples that belong here, that live here, that have set up their home here? Because it's all based in one city. It's an urban campaign. And I think we've done a really fantastic job of doing that. And I haven't heard anyone commenting about whether how we've ruined the setting or the history or
I'm sure. But I mean, tell us a little bit about kind of the cast. You've talked about these people you played with before. In terms of the sort of character choices and the way they engage in the world, what does that bring to the process?
It brings sometimes a lot of surprises. Yeah. You can definitely tell, because this is a setting with a long history, you can definitely tell which of the players have engaged with the setting and the lore and which haven't. And it's very interesting as we go through seeing I don't want to get too into it. It takes place in a land called Cheliax, which is a devil worshipping nation. About 100 years ago, there was a civil war, and the noble house that came out on top was one that had pledged their souls to Asmodeus and the Hells. And so they won, and in the last century, they've set up this country sort of based on the tenets and bureaucracy of Hell. And so that creates a very
particular,
let's say, fascistic setting. And we have players who maybe didn't really engage with that so much, and so they're walking through and they're like, yeah, of course, other people can worship other deities. And I'm like, well, they can if they don't want to get dragged through the streets.
Yeah.
And but then it gives an opportunity to explain the lore and the setting to the listeners who might not know it as well as me, or we have one other Pathfinder expert on the show who is the unofficial lore master.
Well, that's kind of where I was going, because I mean, you've got a game system which is perfectly legitimate narrative, but it's obviously of its time.
Mm-hmm.
You've got a crew of players who are very capable at telling stories together, who don't necessarily fit that mold.
Yeah.
And my expectation is that is a fantastic pool for storytelling.
Yes. We are very keen on safety tools, lines and veils.
Yeah.
And so I'll just say it right now. This was a country that had legalized slavery for the longest time. And luckily, Paizo has done a lot of updating sort of to a modern aesthetic in the last several years. And so canonically in the setting, that country has now outlawed slavery. And one of the players said, I really just don't want this in the game. And so it's relatively easy to just say, okay, there's no slavery. Instead, there's just really bad jobs, indentured servitude, and sort of a hierarchical system that if you're at the bottom, it's bad. I think a lot of people, let me rephrase that. I think there are GMs out there who would balk at a request like that. For me and for us, it's not a request. It's
It's a safety thing. Yeah.
It's a necessity. If one player says, I can't play with this, and we want that person at the table, then you have to adapt.
Look, I mean, I get that. I think it's a really interesting world to confront the issues of slavery if it's there. But at the end of the day, telling the story you want to tell is also about telling the story you want to tell with the people you want to tell it.
Yes.
So if you can't adapt to people's red flag, and one thing so we back in the 90s, we didn't have the X or the other safety systems. They weren't a thing. We had a safe word which we were using, which is basically the X. I mean, we didn't know of it at the time, but that came out of trial and error, where we had a situation where somebody afterwards said they were uncomfortable. So we had to do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that I think there's a trust that we're creating when telling a story.
Yeah. Well, and in that case, this person is also your friend.
Yeah.
Who you don't want to
absolutely.
make uncomfortable or upset. We're trying to have fun, and fun looks different at a lot of tables. There's some channels that want to cry every session.
Yeah.
And some folks who don't want to and want to just go from combat to combat, which is perfectly fine.
Style thing, yeah. I mean, the number of times I've had games running, and some momentous moment happens and someone's crying, that can be fantastic.
It can be fantastic and really a nice,
or it could
feeling.
be worrying.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But luckily, and I think this also comes from the fact that we used to play live only. I don't want to, especially if I'm GMing, I don't necessarily want to portray like a Nazi villain on stream, and then have something I'm saying be clipped and taken out of context and put out everywhere.
Exactly. Although, that's the biggest problem, isn't it? It's the being taken out of context that's the worrisome bit. There's something about playing a cruel character in context with a group who understand the conceit.
Yeah. Yes. But again, so I have one home game, a private game. And we're also playing a Pathfinder Adventure Path. I can't help myself. And that is an evil adventure path.
Yeah.
And so the player characters are jerks. And that is not a story that I would personally want to do on stream or on a podcast, because it could go wrong. I feel like
very quickly.
you have too many variables there where something's not quite right.
And I've talked about this on another podcast where I've used to run 50-person LARPs, so
Ooh,
which is fine. I love storytelling in that context. It's
exhausting
oddly
though.
easier and also
Easier.
harder.
Yeah.
It's both.
The few times I've LARPed, by the end I'm dead. I'm exhausted.
I mean, this isn't physical weapon LARPs. This is
Sure,
murder
no.
mystery style. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've only done vampire LARPs, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. Basically the same principle. And we were dealing with a particularly difficult topic. The Nun of Wootton is a story. I won't explain it because I don't want to trigger anyone, because there is an underlying triggering thing if you understand what the real Catholic mythology is. You'll understand what I'm talking about.
Okay,
And
I'm very curious now.
Oh,
Maybe you'll have to
it's
link me.
really
whenever.
fascinating.
Okay.
The Nun of Wootton is it's on Wikipedia. Anyway,
Okay.
so we were building a plot around that concept, and the person who was going to play that nun, we said to them, "Look, this is what it is. Are you okay?" And they said, "Yes, that sounds great. We're going to do it." But when they came to play it, it was not great.
Yeah.
So we had to deal with that. And I think that was a massive lesson for me.
And that's the bleed, basically. The line between yourself and the character getting. My first vampire LARP, I ended up, not to go too far, I ended up being a primogen for the leader of a vampire clan. And I had some sort of punky anarch come at me, and I was really taken aback. And he put the hand signal up. I'm crossing my fingers here, and like checked in. Hey, are you okay? And that was to me like, oh, this is I am okay actually. And yeah, thank you for checking in. And yeah, let's get back into this.
Yeah, and I think that's that again. So this is, I think, the difference between an audio drama and an actual play is that we are playing very close to a fine line between who the player is and who the performer is, if that makes sense, and also character.
Yeah, but correct me if I'm wrong. In an audio drama, is there usually a script?
There is usually a script, but you
so
do have. I haven't found anyone doing this yet. I'm sure I will when I continue to explore it. But I remember doing a lot of devised pieces when I was doing kind of Amdram stuff. And devised piece, or is no script. You're developing the script as you go through, and they come out of a series of creative processes, workshops, if you like. But there's an arc that the director has.
There's no surprises for the performer.
No surprises, though. No.
Right, and in an actual play, you want there to be a few surprises.
It's important. Yeah.
Yeah, you're trying to create immersion for the actual player, the player character, so that they feel like they're actually in this role in this setting, and so that they can react the way that they would as their character.
Exactly. So we've got our group, we've got our troop, whatever you want to call it. We've got our game. You're leveraging this established setting, but realizing you're going to have to traverse this complicated path between what was good then and what is good now, what the team need and what the audience want to see. So you're doing these in packages of hour, 2 hour, hour sessions, doing 2 per recording.
Yeah. So the 2 hours are about with hour episodes.
Yeah. So once they're in the can, what's your kind of process to then take those episodes and get them ready for release?
Well, I sit down, and it's really unfortunate. I wish I had a bigger buffer. I'm sure you can relate. My new coming into this, as someone who's listened to a lot of Pathfinder actual play podcasts, they all kind of have a similar format. And I found that the ones that I like the most come out on a weekly basis. So unfortunately, that means every Monday night I'm sitting down for 3 to 4 hours, depending on how long that episode was, and editing 6 different people. So it's me and 5 player characters. And it's interesting that you use the word troop, because when we first started, I really wanted to have that vibe. I don't necessarily like when the GM is the person who is the overlord, the controller of everything.
Yeah.
We actually spent 6 months before we ever started recording this main story, taking turns GMing and passing that off so that there would feel more of a equal or an equitable stand between all of us. But yes, so my process basically is sitting down Monday nights, 6 tracks, little background music. That's mostly running
Audacity
the
or
whole
something
time.
like that. What sort of tools do you use? I mean, do you use something
I'm
simple?
on
Or...
DaVinci
DaVinci,
Resolve.
yeah.
I was using Adobe last year, but with the AI stuff, I said, okay, you know what? I'm going to cancel this very expensive license and learn this free and robust software.
Yeah. I actually bought DaVinci because
Ooh.
I could. Because I'm using it for gameplay trailers as well, and so for me it was possible.
If we ever get a Patreon or some sort of income flow, I would definitely, that's first on my list to buy the full DaVinci
But it is
package.
amazing what you can do with even the free version, isn't it?
There's so much,
Yeah.
and there's so much in there that I haven't even experienced yet. I've done a couple of videos, but really I'm just in the Fairlight side of things.
So
Fairlight,
you're
is that
using
what
it specifically for audio,
almost explicitly for audio, which is still amazingly robust. And I've been, as we've as of the recording today, we've released 26 plus episodes. And so my skill level obviously has increased since then. My sound library has increased since then. I bought a whole bunch of sounds from a Humble bundle and some music tracks.
So you're adding
I'm doing a lot in post,
kind of in the process as well.
Yes. And BBC sound effects are, just in case you didn't know, if you Google BBC sound effects, there's a whole library of free stuff to use there.
I didn't realize there's a huge amount of free stuff. That's I know, obviously BBC has very famously got huge amounts of Foley kind of content. I end up using a thing called Envato a lot because you can get like royalty-free licensed material, and it's a single. No matter your usage level, virtually, you've got a single fee. Now, again, because I'm using it in my consultancy, it's okay. It's not a huge amount of money, but it is. Again, this is the one of the questions I think with all these processes is like, if you're doing this for you, you're not generally going to be making lots of money off the back of this, are you?
I have not made any money yet. I've spent quite a bit of money. Actually.
Yeah, exactly. But I think I'm okay with that because, I mean, to my mind, I mean, for me, this is part of my kind of self-care.
Yes.
I get to make games, which is what drives me in an industry, and yet I consult on games in my professional life, but I don't get to make my games. So for me, this is a good way of like giving me that, scratching that itch.
Yeah. I think for me, it's starting to see the responses we're getting in various Discords and on Blue Sky and comments on YouTube and whatnot. That does it for me. It's like, okay, this is worth it because someone is listening, and it's not just someone either. I don't have anything to compare it to because this is my first podcast project. But I think I mentioned on a good day, Twitch streaming, you'll get like 20 viewers at once. And that's schedule-based entertainment. If you don't show up on Tuesday night at 8:30 p.m., you're gonna miss it. You might be able to catch up on YouTube, but at least in my experience there, I don't know a lot of people who watch back YouTube VODs. Whereas looking at the podcast metrics, you don't have to be there on time. The episode comes out, and you've got maybe a week to listen to it before the next episode comes out. And so seeing the hills and valleys of who is downloading our episode when, I love looking at metrics. It's so bad. I will get lost in the sauce.
I don't, because I've got no metrics so far, but I'm still very fresh at it. So yeah.
I would do it on my Twitch streams. I would just like stare at the graph for half an hour, even though nothing's changing, and just think about
Yeah.
things. The really nice thing, I'm using Spotify as the platform for this podcast. And so they have quite a few tools to see not just who's listening on Spotify, but who's listening across all podcast platforms. And I would say I'm pretty happy with the metrics that we're seeing.
If you're enjoying this interview, why not check out this brief trailer from our guest?
Welcome to West Crown, a city of faded glory choked by fear, where 5 strangers become swept up in a storm of hell knights, devils, and thieves.
My name is Sombra. I do what needs to get done in the shadows.
My name is Lowen. I know some magic, if that helps.
I'm Zakud. I'm a medic. I patch people up, and I talk.
My name is Corporal Flynn. Yes, of the tie. When it comes to fighting, I'll help fight. But I don't think I owe you any information other than that.
Hi, I'm Nico. I'm a cook. Food is a big thing for me.
And I'm Alicia.
Gods!
Where every shadow holds a secret.
Zakud, meanwhile, is looking like someone who's been dropped in the middle of season 3 of a crime TV show without knowing what's going on.
He waves his hand at the obvious cloak and dagger bullshit background thing going on. Not interested.
And every choice could mean life or death.
My day is worse, I guarantee you.
Get him a body bag.
Oh!
And the infamous Council of Thieves weaves its web of intrigue and corruption.
One day, sister, one day we'll make sure this whole city pays for what we've had to endure.
In the dark, crumbling streets of West Crown, the only light is at the Twilight's Edge.
You know what the heck you just dropped us into?
Twilight's Edge, a Pathfinder 2e actual play of the Council of Thieves adventure path from the TumbleThrough podcast.
But what led to that audience? How did you get to the stage where people could find you and would actually listen to you?
That was a big reason why I wanted to use a pre-written adventure.
Yeah.
There are, of course, many Pathfinder shows out there that do homebrew stuff. But I get the sense, and I have no research or data to back this up, except for the fact that the big Pathfinder shows are doing the pre-written adventure paths.
Yeah.
And so I get the sense that a lot of people who can't play these adventure paths that, from level 1 to 20 that take 2, 3, 6 years to do, they want to find a show that's running an adventure that they're interested in and listen to it and see how they're doing it.
Yeah.
So I think that right there is number one. Create a show with an immediate hook into the Paizo fan base.
Yeah.
And then second is promotion, which is very hard to do. If you're not posting daily on TikTok or Instagram, you're not necessarily going to build that audience. And even then, there are shows that I follow on those social media platforms that I've never listened to an actual episode of their show. I just see the funny reels that they make. But I think the big thing, as we talked about this at the beginning, is networking.
Yeah.
We have these online communities of actual players who are supporting one another. Yeah. And it's really, there's a quote from Issa Rae, the actress, who said, when you're networking, a lot of people make the mistake of trying to find someone up here, like someone bigger with the big names and the big numbers, and going, hey, you want to help me? Can I ride your coattails? And no, I mean, after a while, you can really start to see through the people who are trying to do that. Yeah. She says the best way to network and collaborate is with the people who are at your level, who are in the trenches with you, who know what you're going through, and who are happy and excited to get the chance. I mean, obviously, you don't want people working for recognition, for fame. You want, eventually, that's the cool thing about Euphoria, is that they're trying to pay their people. It doesn't always happen, but they're trying to do it. But that being said, yeah, if my friend wants to invite me onto his channel for a one-shot, I'm very happy to go over there, A, to play with my friend, and B, to put my name out there and say, hey, I'm Chrifu. I'm the GM for the TumbleThrough podcast. You can find me on socials here, blah, 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 blah. Hope you enjoyed it.
Absolutely. And like I say, for me, like I said, this is my relaxation. This is my enjoyment. And for me, part of the pleasure is to go meet people like yourself and the other people I have on this podcast and talk about the process, because I find that genuinely exciting. It helps, I hope, make me better at the job, for want of a better phrase. And hopefully I'll get a bigger pool of more interesting, different people. And when you put these people in pressure cooker situations and see how they react,
Yep.
that's magic to me. That's and hopefully people will want to listen to that as well. So
I think so. I will say, I think it was in the EU4U Discord server. Someone who I met very recently was commenting in the general chat about the attitude and mentality of the role players in that channel, who are mostly, I would say, 95% are actual players. Versus the people that she played with at home at her table, who were not performers. And that there was this lack of intention, this lack of sort of thought that went into it. They just showed up at the table and were like, lines and veils, we don't need that. Just roll some dice. Which it doesn't make you feel very comfortable to roleplay with those people.
Yeah. Although I have a family group that, my uncle, my cousin, a guy I went skiing with, school skiing trip when I was 12 years old, happens to be my uncle's neighbor now. And they are your traditional role players who want to roll dice and do a bit of story, do a bit of planning, and we have a fun time, and I put them through literal hell.
Right. I'm not trying to knock it.
No.
I think actually, to reverse it, I think it's incredibly important that an actual player has a private, non-streamed or recorded game where they can just relax. Yeah, just play and hang out, order some pizza.
And I think in context, what that I think brings us around to in our kind of full circle is, the kind of artistry of the acting to script performance that we get in a traditional audio drama provides us one level of storytelling engagement. The engagement with a live audience in the Twitch stream gives us a different level of storytelling. And then providing a framework, a rule framework, where those acting personality types can perform with meaning that's not dictated by any particular writer, but dictated by the results of random chance.
Yeah.
All the way down to our dice rolling, classic players. Those are all storytelling techniques. They're all different. And I think they all have a massive place in kind of creating engaging experiences.
That was beautifully summarized.
Thank you. That's very kind of you. So thank you very much for that. I've really enjoyed this. And obviously, by the time this comes out, probably your season will have come to an end, I think. Is that right?
Yeah, we've got 3 weeks left.
3 weeks left. So we'll see. We'll see when this comes out. For those who don't know, I'm putting together a number of these episodes first, and then I'll be releasing them every 2 weeks. So hopefully that should come out relatively soon, but it probably will be after Chrifu's release. So given all the things that you've learned in terms of actual plays and streaming and podcasts, if you had to give one piece of advice to somebody wanting to start out now, what advice would you give them?
Do not, this came to mind immediately, don't start the project with someone who just wants to play the game. There is this urge, this impulse. Okay, I want to get started. I just need to get a group together and then record it and put it out there. I understand. Been there, done that. But you will regret it if you have one or more people in your group who are not interested in promoting or producing or performing and are just there to play a game, because games can be hard to find. And you want to play with your friends, of course. But yeah, make sure that the people that are with you are in it to win it, that they know an actual play is the type of game they want to make and not just a regular home game. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally does. I totally get it. It's a incredibly challenging thing to do, particularly because there takes a certain level of drive to make that
Yes.
happen.
There is ambition in there.
And there's
And it's
got to be a
holding your
desire.
boundaries too.
Yeah, exactly.
If someone comes and says, "Oh, I want to play in this game," and you're like, "Okay, well, you don't have any social media presence. You're not in tune with the actual play scene at all. You don't listen to any or watch any actual plays." It can be a little cutthroat to come off and go, "Well, no, I don't want you in this group." Try and be a little graceful in the approach. But definitely make sure when you're asking and recruiting that you're looking for people who want to do the same thing as you.
And I think maybe this is the deliberate choice I made, is because I knew I'm the kind of driving force behind this particular thing. If I can get a pool of people and make it very accessible to lots of people, then I minimize the risk of that problem. But I wouldn't be making it if it wasn't for people like like Kareem or Lucy, my friend Chris. These people who absolutely regularly turn up and kind of show me that they're enjoying it, and the fact that I can then bring other people on board and hopefully all have a great time doing it is incredibly satisfying.
Yeah.
And
I mean, you want to be friends, you want to have a great time together.
You want to be
At
friends,
the same
have a great
time,
together.
it's not to reiterate the point, but I think the intention, if you want to create an actual play, is you want to create a product that is consumed.
Yes.
Not to be super capitalistic about it, but
Well,
it is.
I think you're creating an art form that is going to be consumed. Doesn't even have to be capitalist about it.
That's right. That's just where my mind goes.
No, I think it's great. Anyway, so on that note, Chrifu, tell us what's the best place for people to find you if they want to find out more about what you're doing?
Blue Sky is probably where I'm most active. Chrifu Bernal, or just Chrifu, I think, on Blue Sky. Instagram. I, as mentioned, and as we've talked about, I'm the GM, producer, and editor for the TumbleThrough podcast. We have one season, the first season of the Twilight's Edge actual play. That's the name of our campaign that we're running there, with the idea that maybe one day there will be a different campaign with a different name. Who knows? I'm not trying to get ahead of myself here.
I hope so.
But you can find TumbleThrough on Blue Sky as well. But to listen to it, Spotify and any other podcast platform, or on YouTube. And yeah, if you do tune in, please let us know. We're still so fresh that we don't necessarily know who our audience is. And every time I find out that someone is listening to it, I'm always like, okay, tell me what you think. Don't hold your punches.
Love it.
I want a full, honest critique. But at the same time, I'm not trying to go around and force people to listen to it. My friends and family, they understand.
I completely feel your pain in every form there. Thank you very much. We'll try to make sure we put all that stuff in the show notes and everything, and hopefully we'll have a nice little snippet or something, trailer or even whatever you're willing to share with us. We'll share along.
I have a trailer that I'm
as well.
Enthusiastic to share.
Brilliant. Okay. On that note, thank you very much for joining us. So we've been talking a lot about how in the podcast world we can do all sorts of really interesting things with having a community of people talking and expressing, and the factor that comes out of having that meaningful moment where the dice make something really matter, and how that changes the way that we tell stories. So, hopefully you found that useful, interesting. And if you did, please like, subscribe, share, follow, or whatever those things are that we do on the socials of this world. One more time, thank you much, Chrifu, for taking part in this. And we'll be back next time. We'll be talking to more people who are creating amazing stories online through audio drama. Thank you very much.
Thank you.